Welcome once again to today's webinar on achieving peak efficiencies in mortgage processing presented by Rapid Acceleration Partners. I'm Vinay and I'll be the moderator for today's session. Before we start, let's go through a few housekeeping items. You will receive the slides of the presentation in an email, and the recording of the webinar will be sent within the next 48 hours. So if you have missed any slides, don't worry. We are always open to learning more, so feel free to send in your feedback via email. The chat will be open throughout the webinar, so keep the questions coming in, and we will endeavor to answer all of it at the end of the presentation. We will have a poll during the presentation, and we would love to have your thoughts and opinion through the poll. And we thank you in advance for keeping any distractions at bay for the next 1 hour. This is going to be worth your time. So a brief introduction to Rapid Acceleration Partners. We started back in 2017. The aim being to democratize artificial intelligence across enterprises of all sizes. Today, we have helped more than 40 organizations across 6 industry verticals scale their enterprise and processes. We have processed more than 10 million content pieces and 15 million process iterations, and we are still counting. We have a great team here at Rapid Acceleration Partners. They come with more than 300 man-years of experience. And as we speak, 100% of our bots continue to positively impact organizations wherever they have been deployed. And no wonder the industry has taken note of our contribution. Leading technology medias like Analytics Insight and CIO Review have reviewed and rewarded and recognized our work. And you could go online and please do check out our work and the recognition that we have received over the years. Now, to the presenters for the day, let me introduce both of them to you. First, Raghu, an Asia 140 under 40 most influential leader awardee, is the founder and CEO of Rapid Acceleration Partners. He has spent many years in the process automation space and has made it his life's mission to democratize AI for all data-intensive industries and enterprises of all sizes. Our second speaker for the day, Shyam, has years of experience, more than 16 years of experience in delivering meaningful outcomes for customers in the product space, which includes fintech. He spearheads the growth strategies in Rapid Acceleration as one of its business leaders. So without much further delay, let's get started and learn how you can achieve in mortgage processing more than 80% process efficiencies. The stage is all yours, Shyam.
Hey, thank you, Vinay, and a very warm welcome to everyone who's out here today. So I understand due to this pandemic-induced complexities, it's yet another webinar that you've been asked to sign up for, and it's virtual. It's not happening face to face, but we totally can feel the enthusiasm today amongst the participants. And thank you so much for making the time and ensuring that you are able to learn, also contribute, hopefully, in this webinar, and also share your perspectives with us. So you will have ample opportunities to do that. So my first slide for the day, I'm just going to kick things off here. So we get this, right? So we get the whole mortgage process. And trust me, we understand that it's not easy. We understand it's a breeding ground for bottlenecks. We understand it's complex in comparison to several other processes. Just the sheer size, complexity, combined with the multitude of repetitive tasks that several of your team members might be doing day in and day out, make this whole process manually intensive and time consuming. And we understand that organizations typically rely on multiple systems, databases, CRM tools, workflow tools, reporting tools throughout their operations. So every individual tool has to talk to itself. Just thinking about my own process up until about 2 years ago, I used to have at least until 2 years ago about 8-9 different tools for my day job. So I understand that it can totally get confusing if those tools do not talk to each other, do not integrate well enough. So we understand that virtually every step in the loan processing cycle, especially in the mortgage space, can become a bottleneck with obviously document review topping the list there. So where do we go from here, right? And if you look at the next visual that we have for you, just recapping the most important challenges that the mortgage industry must resolve urgently. Disparate systems, people, processes, highly manual and repetitive, multiple document formats, regulatory complexities, too many costly human errors that can creep in, and unskilled, untrained resources. Obviously, a couple of points here to note. You want to be able to scale up your resources at will, especially when there are several other pressures on business. Obviously right now is also a great time for people to look at mortgages and look at homes. We're going to come to that in a little bit. And the whole team must be aware of the regulatory complexities and the awareness around those. So it's not an easy process that we get, and we completely understand and empathize. So if you look at the visual right here about the urgency to resolve these challenges now, we understand that some of these complexities are induced by the pandemic, and obviously a home buying frenzy is ongoing as we speak. There's a need to improve the response time and scale your on-demand resources at will. There's obviously increasing costs and pressure to increase your profit margins. But where do we go from here, right? And if obviously your mortgage company is understaffed, a sudden surge of mortgage applications is going to put a lot of pressure on the business. So what's our solution? You guessed it right. We think it's hyperautomation. So I'm just going to take a quick pause here, and Raghu, if you can just pull up the poll question. We have a question for you. The next slide, please. So hopefully everyone's able to see the poll question pop up. Which one of these statements resonates best with your first instinct about hyperautomation? Please choose an answer. Replacing workers with robots to perform all the tasks. Just another fancy number crunching jargon. We've heard that a lot as well. Automating manual and mundane tasks across the entire process flow. And it's perfectly fine if you don't know. That's a perfectly legit response as well. So we're looking forward to getting your answers all scrolled in. Looks like the third option is leading by quite a margin out here. There's some who actually have felt that they don't know, and that's great as well, because that means we have a good chance to present our content today that's going to be very educative. Right, we'll give a couple more moments for people to fill out your answers if you haven't had the chance to do so. There's about 10 people, 9 as we speak, left to respond. So if you haven't taken the poll, please do so right now. All right, last couple calls, and there you go. Looks like obviously many people think it's automating manual and mundane tasks across the entire process flow, being the first instinct about hyperautomation. That's great, because it means that it is a very discerning audience that we have today out here. There's some who don't know what it really means as well. So we're going to obviously do our best to educate you on this particular webinar, give you all the collateral and resources to do so. But obviously, as Vinay was mentioning earlier on the presentation, we're going to ensure that you get a recording and all the relevant material, and you will have the option to also get in touch with us one-on-one to learn more about what we mean by this. All right. That being out of the way, we're going to help you debunk some hyperautomation. Okay, so if this, Raghu, has the results been shared with the audience? If not, I think we can put that up on screen.
Yeah, it's done.
It's done, Shyam. Okay, awesome. I just got a pop-up saying the results weren't shared yet. So awesome. All right, we're going to debunk some of the hyperautomation myths for you all today. But before that, just some staggering stats that you will find on the right side of your screen. There's 2.3 billion robots that's expected by 2025, according to Gartner, and every enterprise worker like you and I are going to have a bot working with us. And by bot, it could be a way in which you can automate a process and also look at automation as a solution for your manual tasks. That's staggering. And as a result of it, by 2024, again, organizations will lower costs with hyperautomation up to 30 to 70%. That's a huge ballpark, but even a 30%, even at the lower end, seems like a huge cost saving if you have to consider hyperautomation as the solution. And 70%, obviously, that's you probably taken a bunch of costs off your hit list for that year. And as a result of all that, with proper implementation, 100% of intended outcomes are going to be achieved with that, right? Now, that's with the stats. But what are we really talking about as far as myths and the facts are concerned? Is it, we've heard this a lot when we talk to customers, when we talk to some potential customers as well. Is it a threat to employment? Absolutely not. In fact, it will improve the job quality of your teams. There's going to be another myth that we've heard is there's going to be additional machine or hardware required to implement. The fact remains that you're going to work on with this implementation on your existing infrastructure. Another myth that people have heard is it's going to cost a fortune and only very large enterprises can deploy. The fun fact remains that it's a affordable OpEx model if you choose the right vendor, and you've got to be very careful with that to plan your return on investment. But obviously, that's very doable as well. The last myth that we've heard here is requires special expertise. There's a lot of AI and ML training required to implement and deploy. The fact remains that it's easy to operate and mostly automated. So obviously, you will need some of your team members to be familiar with the process and also validate things from time to time. But it's almost on autopilot mode. So as we were saying, it's the hyperautomation solution is a software that's going to work on your existing infrastructure. It's going to complement and make your existing systems interoperable. That is what it is. It's not yet another beast that you don't understand. But we've got something pleasant for you on the next visual. You will see a donut out there, right? As you can tell, there's obviously, we've tried to differentiate that, but okay, according to me, a donut is still a donut, whether it's glazed or not, whether it's got the relevant flavors and toppings or not. That being said, the scalability that hyperautomation will give your processes in mortgage and lending spaces is incomparable. A quick example that we want to quote out here is a client of ours who had a backlog of about 5 million unprocessed forms for several months. When they implemented our solution, managed to process all of that in just 3 days, implementing the hyperautomation solution. So that's staggering, right? If you can get done with your backlog in just 3 days implementing such a solution, would you go for it? So what are we really talking about as far as manual and hyperautomation oriented processes are concerned? It's obviously the hyperautomation solution is going to give you a faster process with larger and higher efficiency, highly scalable, reduction in OpEx costs by 30 to 70%, like we said. It guarantees you predictable outcomes and the time available for meaningful and value-added tasks. Today, a lot of your team members will be possibly spending 50 to 80% of their day jobs just filling out forms, collating, reconciling information across disparate systems. Imagine if they had that time to spend with actual prospects and people looking for mortgages. They can spend that time doing actual customer service. That will, exponentially, increase your business volumes, right, in a much more meaningful way. That's what we're trying to talk about here. And when we look at breaking down hyperautomation, really, there's three components to it, as we typically like to imagine. There's obviously the interoperability factor, wherein we're trying to remove the drudgery of moving data between core systems. The digitization factor, mortgage industry, as we described, is filled with paperwork. Any piece of information is new data flowing into the system. So hyperautomation will enable digitization of all these independent systems and paperwork that's involved. And intelligent automation, imagine bots with brains. We're going to come to that again in the next slide, right? So what makes automation intelligent? If you recall the slide where Vinay introduced our company, you'll recall that we were recognized for being an RPA solutions provider of the year very recently. But actually, I want to call out that we're much more than that. RPA, robotic process automation, is obviously huge, but we combine that with the prowess of artificial intelligence, and we have what is called intelligent process automation. So if you can imagine, you need the hands, that is the actual bot, which is RPA, but you also need the brains to go along with it to perform significant tasks. So our solution actually has the hands with the brains, and imagine not just a pair of hands, but multiple pairs of hands for you to do all these tasks simultaneously and not sequentially. That's what we're talking about, really. That's extremely powerful, basically. So RPA in simple terms is we're going to perform tasks like entering data into loan origination systems, moving data from CRM systems to employment verification systems, creating consolidated reports by collecting data from disparate systems and processes. But there's one significant disadvantage of RPA that I'd like to call out, that it cannot process unstructured content. And what do we mean by unstructured content? You'll find this on the visual that you see on screen, which is typically the iceberg phenomenon. Here's why you need that intelligent factor that we talked about in one of our previous visuals, where you need the brains to go along with the multiple limbs that you need for this. What you see out there in your process is probably just the 20% structured data that you think is flowing in. But there's 80% unstructured content according to Gartner. And what do we mean by that is any email that you get from a client that might point to any intent and point to anything that they might say about their need for having a mortgage solution, and any client describing their particular context. That is a piece of information. You're currently capturing that in a CRM system. There's different components to your loan origination, tracking, underwriting. Every process has different mechanisms to track all of that information. And when you do not have a particular way to track all of that, and imagine if today all of your clients are filling physical forms and someone will write it in a certain way, someone might type it out. Do you have a unified system to track all of that? Do you have OCR capabilities? And if not, all of that is unstructured content. If you have not thought through how you're going to digitize it, how you're going to consolidate all of that information, that's what we're talking about in terms of a solution. Our solution is able to collate all of that. 80% of the staggering amounts of unstructured content flowing in through your systems is also collated along with the 20% of structured data that you think is making up all of your data today, data inflow and outflow. So here's how we process the unstructured content. So obviously there's a ton of unstructured content out there that we just described. There's also the historically extracted data that we have in our systems. Over the years, we've obviously trained our models to look at that data. We've got an AI engine that's going to process both of these, and the trained model, that is the multiple limbs with the brain that you see out there, is going to process all of that and create perfectly repetitive automated tasks for you to perform without any manual intervention. So where does that leave us with hyperautomation as a journey? On this particular visual, you will find that this is a model that we're talking through as we approach your project planning. Those of you who are in business planning, project planning, and sprint planning will probably get that in jiffy. For the others, obviously, hyperautomation is about removing any manual intervention to the maximum extent possible. It's not a one-time solution, nor a one-size-fits-all solution. There is always a need for organizations to be agile and responsive. And obviously, as you can see, there's several blocks out here that the process backlog will have. But when you look through several weeks and months of sprint planning, it's not sequential, but it's actually being implemented with an agile methodology. So it's not just happening one after the other, it's happening in parallel. So that's what we're trying to say with you'll be able to solve with hyperautomation. So I'm just going to take a quick pause here and hand over the reins to Raghu, who's going to take you through the particular industry use cases that we have developed for the mortgage space. But hopefully you've got a good enough context of the industry and what problems you're trying to solve with our solution today. Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Shyam. So with that background of really how hyperautomation helps, right? I'll take a few minutes to deep dive into the mortgage ecosystem, right? As you all know, again, most of you, the mortgage ecosystem is a fairly complex ecosystem, right? Spanning across a very, very wide variety of stakeholders. And today, the focus, we'll keep the focus to largely 3 types of stakeholders, if you will, right? So at the front end of the ecosystem, brokers, right? You could be lenders or processors in the middle of the ecosystem, and then you could be services at the tail end of the ecosystem. Again, hyperautomation is something that can work across the mortgage ecosystem, if you will, right? So if you're a mortgage broker, again, typical day in life for your team would be a very, very wide range of activities that they do, right? Verify accuracy of an application, or it could be submitting loan applications for approvals, or extracting data from customer documents, reviewing them, pushing those documents into the lenders portals, that you could be working with multiple lenders, pushing data back and forth, right? Or filing and maintaining records, right? Ordering appraisals and other data, other information for your customers. So in essence, there is a lot of work that you're doing, that your team is doing, and a lot of paper pushing that happens back and forth with customers and the lenders on both ends. Imagine the amount of time. So the statistics says that the average amount of time that a mortgage broker spends in actually engaging with the customer is less than 30%. Whereas that is really the piece that a lot of the your loan officers should be focusing on. They should be spending a lot more time in engaging with the customers, advising them, talking to the lenders, trying to get the best rates, right? And then doing the closing, which is where most of the effort should go. Rather, it's the complete the other opposite. So in essence, when you look at this, each of these tasks is a candidate for hyperautomation, right? A significant amount of effort can be removed by hyperautomating these tasks on the broking side, thereby providing a lot more time for the brokers to be able to engage with the customer or the lender, and ensuring that they are able to provide maximum value for their customers by removing things off the mundane tasks off the plate, right? Similarly, if you're a lender or a processor, right, if you will, right, again, lenders, you could be a processor who's working on behalf of a lender, but pretty much you follow most of the process pieces that they do, right? Today in the lending space, again, there are some significant challenges that you're presented as a lender, right? Very well seen that today average processing time for closing a loan is anywhere between 45 to 60 days, right? There is constant pressure to reduce time and cost for closing a mortgage, right? And then there are a lot of things that happen outside of the core system, right? Typically the process comes in and then things fan out of the core system. And then there are a lot of automated rule-based transactions that happen outside of that, which are left to completely to the loan officers to work on, right? There is just too many players, too many other systems. So it's almost as if there's a bunch of things that happen the moment a loan application lands on the table. And it is as critical also to create verifiable audit trails, so that we know if something goes wrong, you're able to go back and find out what happened and where something went wrong, right? Again, there is a very, very wide structure of processes that happen right from loan application all the way to closing, and as well as post-closing, for example, right? And right from loan origination, the process fans out into multiple systems from the core system, right from getting a bunch of documents, reviewing those documents, ordering for appraisals or a credit report with a third party, right? Processing flood reports, for example, or ordering income or tax verification. So there could just be a very, very wide variety of tasks that happen. And then once a credit decision is communicated, right, then you could, it could be filling in letters, sending out the documents to the customer for e-signatures, collection of those signatures, ensuring that the information comes back in the required forms. So essentially, there is that whole gamut of process that can be automated across the life cycle, right? So one of the biggest things that takes a significant amount of time is just the sheer number of documents that are required as part of the mortgage cycle, and the ability to be able to extract data from these documents during that cycle. And that is, again, a huge component of the hyperautomation powered by the AI piece, right? If you're a servicer at the fag end of the cycle, again, after the closing happens, again, I mean, it's servicing. How do you service a delinquent borrower? How much time do I spend, right? How much time do I work with foreclosures or forbearance? Right? Essentially, how do I handle the entire set of activities there, right? Again, today, given the situation today in the market, right? We all understand that there's been a huge number of forbearance requests, right? It is estimated there is a little over 4 million forbearance requests that have come through the door in the last year or so, right? And there is going to be a significant of forbearance rollbacks that's going to happen as the pandemic starting to ease. So which means there is significant amount of time that needs to be spent for customer service, right? Either forbearance requests or rollbacks. All of these are going to come from multiple channels, right? They need to be differentiated from short-term loan applications. Servicing questions will need to be answered, or if there are forbearance requests, for example, we'll need to verify them, right? And then you ask for documentation, verify those documents, then take a decision, and then initiate the forbearance, for example, right? And as these rollbacks happen, it is also critical that there is a quality of asset verification for delinquency, and ensuring that these loans actually go back into becoming loans again and don't become delinquent, right? So essentially, there is every step of these processes involves a significant amount of manual effort. There is disjoint systems, so you could have a loan servicing system through which you manage all of these requests, but your requests come in through the door through a different system, or the moment the loan servicing is handled or loan forbearance happens, then you initiate activities on that system. So essentially, there is a lot of manual touch points that happen during the process, including, again, document verification and processing is a significant component of these, which can again be addressed with hyperautomation, right? So I mean, we've been talking a lot of high level, I'd say, theory, right? So we thought we'll just give you a quick glimpse into typically how we believe something like mortgage processing will happen, right? Again, so essentially your processor, just a small piece of the puzzle is what we see here, right? You typically manually open every single document, extract the data from the documents, right? Manually stare and compare that information, and then validate any of the rules as you pull out the data, right? And then if there are any discrepancies, you go in and identify those discrepancies and record any adjustments in the system, for example, right? Typically, this process again provides for multiple touch points, human touch points, and forms that we could induce error into the system. So while you look at documents, there could be information that's overlooked, right? Or data entry errors into the system when you copy and paste data from documents again, right? Or when you chances of missing some documents when you retrieve the documents from a repository. There's no standard way of finding discrepancies again, so it is completely left to the human, right? And the whole process of allowing a human to be able to manually track the whole process, right? Which is again it's a big process that's prone for error, right? So here we thought we'll show you a quick video in the context of one of the pieces of the mortgage puzzle, a title processing space, right? We'll run a quick video and show you something here. Again, I'll give some quick commentaries to how typically the process could work. Again, this is just to show that the hyperautomation system doesn't necessarily need an entirely new set of systems. It is something that just complements your existing systems and just mimics whatever human action or processes happen today, right? So in this case, a bunch of orders to be processed for the day come in through email, right? Pretty much all of what you see on the screen here is being done by the bot in an automated fashion, right? It downloads the spreadsheet, pulls out the information to be extracted, meaning the orders to be processed for the day, right? It goes in this case, it's looking for a recorded mortgage document for title processing, right? It's looking for those title documents, downloads the information, right? And when once the information is downloaded, right? Meaning again, because of multiple orders, it's trying to download multiple order pieces of the recorded mortgage for multiple orders, right? Once it downloads that, it's already extracted the information and it's pushing the information into a human in the loop verification. Again, this is because the AI sometimes may not be 100% efficient. So we can use discernment and say at what point do we push it to a human to take a look. So essentially, instead of actually extracting the information, the human does just the job of a quick verification, right? And then the moment the human does the verification and confirms the extraction data or makes changes in the system, right? What we immediately see is that the bot picks up that data, goes into the system, and then does the data entry within the system again. So essentially, the whole process of pulling all the documents, pulling the right documents, right, indexing them, sorting them, extracting the information, all of that is completely taken care of in a fully automated fashion. All that the client needs to do is just look at the data and just do a comparison. Again, this need not be done for all document types and all conditions, right? There are certain types of documents where efficiencies are fairly high, right? And in those cases, they can go completely automated. Only in specific cases where there is a belief that we'll need to look at a human in the loop system, that is the only case where we will need to put it through a human for verification. And then once that is done, the system will automatically take care of the rest of the process of pushing it in, doing any validations, if you will, and then pushing it down in the system. Again, okay, a quick recap, right? And just like Shyam said, hyperautomation is really about automating to the maximum extent possible, right? It is a journey. It is not necessarily a specific set of steps that you'd say, okay, from tomorrow I'm going to be hyper automated. You'll start looking at every single process and start automating it. Obviously, you start with the quick wins, the ones that produce maximum value. But in general, with our customers, we've seen a 30 to 80% savings in operating costs, right? Anywhere, I'd say upwards of 500 to 800% of increase in productivity on the processes that are automated, with a significant ROI of the range of about 300%, right? So the attempt in this webinar was to give a very high-level overview of what hyperautomation is, introduce that concept, how do you even approach something like hyperautomation, and then talk about where in the mortgage processing space can hyperautomation be used, right? If you'd like to know more, if you'd like to understand on where specifically it can help you in your journey, right? Just reach out to us. We could book a free consultation. We'd be very happy to work with you, understand your process at a very high level, no obligation, just understand, give you a roadmap for success, at least advise you on what would be the best place to start and identify use cases and so on. right? So with that, we'll take a pause, right, and take any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Raghu and Shyam. So we are open to questions. And we do have a first question from Linda. Which tasks should be handled by robots and versus employees?
Okay, so that's a good question, right? I mean, pretty much anything that is mundane, right, and can be automated is something that should be automated, right? I think it's as simple as that, right? Anything that lends well, anything that is repetitive, right, either can be defined with a set of rules, right, or can have unstructured, but can have the AI train and look at that in context, right? That is something that can be automated, right? It doesn't have to be a very specific piece, meaning unless it's like, for example, if it's to do with an extremely strong customer engagement piece, right? That is not something that we would recommend it is automated, right? Or if it is something that needs a lot of discernment or judgment, right, and a very deeper understanding of the scenario, that is something that we would not recommend to be handled automated, right? But pretty much anything else that doesn't fall into this window is something that can be automated.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Raghu. So the other, another question is, are there any dependencies on a person's time for in daily operations? Like how much time will I be able to spend, or should I be spending on a daily basis?
Yeah, that's a okay. It's a slightly loaded question. I don't think there's a direct answer to that question, right? So, so essentially, I'd say so just going back to the slide that Shyam had shown, right? I think it's a very specific. Meaning you ideally in the hyperautomation journey, you would want to break your process automation pieces into smaller manageable chunks, right? You take a small piece of the process, right? And typically our automation projects are anywhere between 4 to 6 weeks long for a single process. So we take a chunk of piece of the process, we'd go ahead and automate that, and then we'd move on to the next one. And then from there, we'd move on to the next one. I think that's kind of how we'd go ahead, right? So so in over a 4 to 6 week period for the automation journey, we've generally seen that that the subject matter expert who understands the process and needs to give inputs would probably have to spend anywhere between 16 to 20 hours, right? So that's like a ballpark. Yeah. Okay. So there is a direct question to me from Morgan, right? It asks, can you review a 200-page closing package and tell me that all the docs are present, the signature lines are signed, and appropriate docs are notarized? How long would it take to process such a package? Right? Yeah. So yes, that's an excellent question, because that is a classic case for the mortgage process, right? And that's one of the best uses of hyperautomation, where something like this would take, I mean, for the system to process, it's probably going to take, again, we'll need to look at the quality of the documents and whether they will be they'll be very poorly scanned, or a mix of good scans and poor scans, right? And the image quality is something that will typically take the time from a processing standpoint. But yeah, at a very high level, a 200-page closing package, yes, it could take anywhere between, I'd say, like 8 to 10 minutes max to process across multiple documents to confirm whether all documents are present and signature lines are signed, right? And notarization, or if any other data points will need to be extracted, if they will need to be split and put into files. So pretty much sorting, indexing, extraction of data, validations, all of that can be performed in one shot.
Thank you, Raghu. So this is turning out to be an interesting conversation. So please do keep the questions coming in. One other question we have from Jonathan is, we are a 5-member team. So how does this work for me?
Yeah. So one of the myths that we typically hear time and again is, look, I'm a small team, hyperautomation won't work for me, right? Or there needs to be a certain size. Again, what can be automated and what, when automated, will produce ROI is a call that will need to be taken on a subjective basis, or on a case-to-case basis. But that said, we believe that there is opportunity for automation anywhere, right? I mean, we in the past, we've talked to pretty much any organization that we've talked to, there has always been an opportunity for automation, right? How much, what is the scale and the size and the volumes could change, but there is never really a situation where there is no opportunity for automation. Again, obviously your volumes and size are huge, there are more opportunities. When a size is lesser, the opportunities are lesser, but when the team size is lesser, we also notice that the repetitive activities tends to be fairly higher, and essentially because of that, I think it makes a lot more sense to automate them. So you can actually spend a lot more time engaging with customers and scaling your business, which is what you're good at.
Okay.
I'd just like to add one thing there to the response that Raghu said. And Jonathan, again, thanks for that question. But I think the most important thing that I also want to leave you with is that we specialize in working with small teams. And if you look at our existing customer base today, there's like anywhere team sizes between 2 people to about hundreds of people. So obviously we specialize in working with small teams, and our levels of support, the delivery, post-sale experience has been rated extremely high. So obviously we'd love to talk more and engage with you to understand what processes you're looking to automate, like Raghu was saying. So looking forward to chatting more with you. Thanks. Vinay, back to you.
Yep. Thank you, Shyam. We have a question from Al, and it is, I'm a broker with multiple lenders. Will your solution be able to work with multiple lender systems?
Yeah, so okay, that's an interesting question, because so essentially this solution is, I mean, we haven't really gone to a lot of depth around our core solution. We've talked largely in the context of hyperautomation. We'd be very happy to get together with Al and show our solution, what our capabilities are at some point. But yeah, long story short, I think the way with this solution works is it will pretty much be able to mimic whatever a human is able to perform, right? So if your teams are today able to go and work across multiple lender systems and take care of the documentation or process there, then yes, our solution will also be able to do that. Okay, so I have a follow-up question from Morgan. Morgan asks, how does pricing work? Again, Morgan, I think there's a slight bit of subjectivity to that. We'd be happy to just reach out, understand few more questions, try and understand how essentially what goes in, how many pages are we processing, how many fields, how many relevant pieces are we looking at, and how many fields are we extracting, and so on, to be able to put together the pricing. But yeah, we again, like Shyam mentioned, we work with a very varying set of customers. So it could be right from just a flat fee or to a transaction-based pricing, right, or a slab-based. So it's a mixed model that we offer.
Okay, so Raghu, another question, and it kind of follows the same pattern, is what are some of the loan systems and other systems that you've worked with?
Okay, so again, I think in the past we worked with very different systems, right? I mean, different originating systems, different core systems within the lending ecosystem. right, or downstream systems. In some cases, we also have to integrate with the CRM, because a lot of the engagement and information happens with the CRM. We've had customers that use a document management system with a core system, so we've had to integrate with the document management system for where really the documents are stored. So collect the documents, index them, sort them, extract the data, push them into core systems, and then push the data into the document systems. Right. So again, like we said, it's a solution that's fairly system agnostic, right? It doesn't have to stick to one single system, right? If we can see your teams operate that system, we will be able to mimic that. That's essentially how this works.
Some great questions coming our way. We have another question from Guru. Do I need to hire an automation specialist on a long term to manage this?
Okay, so that's I'd say that's a slightly premature question, because I think, you don't need, okay, so you don't need an automation specialist, right? But given the scale of automation, there may need to be someone that understands automation, that is constantly looking at this, right? But from a technology standpoint, there is no, it's a very dumbed down technology, so there is no need really for a specialist for automation.
In other words, you're saying you don't need to be a guru.
Yep.
This question came from Guru, so sorry, couldn't help myself. Back to you, Vinay.
It appears that there are no more questions. Again, thanks a lot for your time. Like we said, we will share the deck and this recording with all of you. Thank you for taking the time today. If you still have any questions, feel free to reach out to us at any point in time, or we'd be happy to schedule a conversation to at least talk through your, not necessarily use cases, but your pain points, right? What kind of process, maybe even just offer some no obligation advice on where you could start, what could be a good starting point, and how you could take things forward there.
Thank you all, and please do follow our LinkedIn page for more updates. We will be doing more such sessions for the mortgage and lending space. So until we meet next time, stay safe and see you soon. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.